Pepper plants are a great addition to the garden, and for the most part, most varieties are pretty simple to grow. However, I've had quite a few issues with different varieties over the years, and so today I just want to share 5 tips for planting your peppers and helping them to have success throughout the season, especially if you're in a warmer zone such as zone 9 or above. So my very first tip for you today is to plant smaller pepper varieties. And what I mean by that is to plant peppers that don't have to get as big as, say, a bell pepper. I have not had success with bell peppers over the years. I have never been able to get them to their full size. They will start growing, but then they never continue to mature to the actual full size that they need to be. And I've heard the same issue from many other gardeners as well. Although I have had friends and family in the same area as us who have had great success with bell peppers, but it tends to be a finicky pepper. And I think the same goes for all larger peppers, because every small variety of pepper I've ever grown has done amazing. We've had no issues. So when I grow serranos and jalapenos, shishitos, they all do really, really good. So if you've had trouble in the past growing larger peppers, then I suggest just planting smaller varieties. And my second tip is to always transplant your peppers. Tomatoes and peppers are the 2 vegetables that I don't ever plant directly by seed in the garden. If you've watched other videos of mine, I'm sure you've heard me say that when I can, I love to direct sow seeds in the garden. It's a great practice for cucumbers and squashes and okra and so many other vegetables, but I don't ever directly sow peppers or tomatoes. I sometimes do start them in their own individual pots to transplant, but I don't directly sow the seeds into the soil. They just don't seem to do very well. I know you've likely maybe yourself tried that in the past and had success, but I think for optimal success, peppers should always be transplanted. And when you transplant them, make sure you plant them in full sun, in well-draining soil that is amended well. Either you mix in some compost or some kind of soil amendment, and then be sure to fertilize throughout the season just to continue giving the nutrients to your plants. And as you're spacing them out, they should be about 18 inches apart or so. And now for tip number 3, which is to water effectively. And the reason I say water effectively is because watering is one of those things that can be so tricky. It's going to vary for every gardener depending on the soil that's in your garden, depending on your weather. There's so many variables, and peppers are one of the vegetables or fruits, whatever you like to consider it, that when you look up on the internet how to water a pepper plant, you're going to get a million different answers. You're going to get some people that say to only water once a week. Some people are going to say keep the soil constantly moist. Some people say to let it dry out in between waterings. And I just know for us here in zone 9, where our summers get really hot, I don't ever let anything completely dry out in between waterings. I don't really think that's great for us in the really hot weather because it will stress out your plants. But I also don't have anything that's overly saturated just sitting and standing water either. And so if you have well-draining soil, I would say just water your pepper plants like you do everything else. If you need to water them a little bit less because you notice that they don't seem quite as healthy, then it possibly could be that they're getting too much water, and maybe you could try watering a little bit less. We have always just watered our pepper plants the same as everything else, and we've had great success. So I just wanted to mention that watering is going to be one of those things that you need to test. I would say you can always water a little bit less and bring a plant back, but once they start getting way too much water, that's a little bit more harmful. So to be on the safe side, you can water a little less and then up your watering if needed, but just kind of test it. And if your weather's really hot, I would say for sure at least water every other day. And now for tip number 4, which is to pull off the little flower buds off of small pepper plants when you buy them, or if you started your own by seeds. When pepper plants are really small and they start producing the flowers, then the plant puts more of its energy to producing that fruit versus growing bigger. And so when you have a smaller pepper plant and you start seeing little buds forming, you can just gently pinch those off, and that's going to send more energy to overall plant growth versus the fruit. So when plants are small, I just gently pick off the buds, and then once that plant gets larger, then you let everything bloom and produce fruit. And now for tip number 5, which applies to all vegetables, and that is to prevent and check for pests often. Peppers are very prone to aphids and flea beetles and caterpillars. There's also many other pests that will attack your pepper plants, but those are a few of the most common. So if you can just check on them daily and then treat the pests as soon as you see them, your plants are going to grow so much healthier. It's really hard when you come out and you see a huge infestation of pests because it's either already damaging to your plant or it's just really hard to then at that point get on top of them. So check on your plants frequently, and that will definitely help. You can also do other things like plant marigolds and different herbs that will deter pests and attract beneficial insects, and that's really helpful as well. So earlier I mentioned that I like to plant varieties of peppers that are smaller, and one of those varieties is the shishito pepper. And if you've never had a shishito pepper, it is great. It's truly one of our most favorite peppers that we plant, and it's very easy to grow. It produces like crazy. And so if you head to this video here, I talk all about the shishito pepper and how to grow it and how we use it. So be sure to check it out, and I'll see you there.